Hello everybody, I hope you're doing fantastically fabulous today, and if you're not doing fantastically fabulous, then I don't know how to help you. I may look the same, that's because we're doing multiple videos today, because I have multiple things that I want to talk about, and if I did one long video, it would go on forever, and ever, 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 and ever. We're going to talk today about if you can teach witchcraft. There's a lot of people out there who offer courses on teaching witchcraft. There's tons of books out there on teaching witchcraft, and they're mostly Wiccan based, which is fine. But the question remains, can you teach this? This isn't like Christianity where there is a Bible and it states what is good, what is bad, and the entire story, at least according to their beliefs, on how the earth was created and all of that fun stuff. Witchcraft is a very personal experience and spiritual practice, and to those who practice Wicca, a religion. But I question if you can teach witchcraft. With Wicca, it's a different story because, again, it is a religion. There are Sabbats, there are moon phases, there are religious practices, there are certain ways of doing rituals, and depending on how hardcore you are, there are certain ways of setting up an altar that is and isn't acceptable. There are certain ways to cast a circle. There are certain ways to cast a spell. There are certain ways to do just about anything and everything. But we're not talking about Wicca specifically. We're talking about witchcraft, which is a little bit different. In Wicca, yes, there is witchcraft, there is spells and rituals and so on and so forth. And in witchcraft, there are moon phases and herbs. And there are aspects that you can teach for sure, such as what different herbs do, what the moon phases are, how you might go about casting a spell, what the definition of a spell is. So there are certain things that you can for sure teach. But if that's it, doesn't that mean every course is essentially the exact same? For example, let's say Janet down the street is teaching a course on witchcraft, and Bob on the other side of the city is teaching a course in witchcraft. Janet is more of a traditional witch. So what could she teach? Well, she could teach her viewpoints on what it means for her to be a traditional witch. She could teach you how she casts spells, how she works with different entities and elements. She could teach you how she does casting a circle or protection magics. She could teach you about how she does X, Y, or Z. Are you getting a common theme here? Bob, who may practice Wicca, would teach you maybe Gerald Gardner's way of doing Wicca, or the Alexandrian path of doing Wicca, or many other different types of paths. And he might be more ceremonial in terms of practicing more traditional, quote-unquote, old-school Wicca. The thing that I find kind of difficult is when somebody who doesn't practice a specific path, following specific rules that that path has laid out, how are they teaching the craft? Because, as I've stated, there are basic things that are equivalent across any path. A moon phase is a moon phase is a moon phase is a moon phase. A planetary alignment is a planetary alignment is a planetary alignment. The herb mint is the herb mint is the herb mint. There are certain aspects of the craft that anybody with a little bit of knowledge can definitely teach or speak about, as you have seen in a lot of my previous videos. But to teach witchcraft is a different thing altogether. Because while, yes, you can teach the basics of witchcraft, what advanced topics can you teach? Because if you consider spellcrafting to be advanced, well, who's to say that your way is the right way? What you're teaching then is your opinion and how you personally craft spells, which would be different than how I think of spells and how I craft spells. While yes, there is a common thread with spells such as intention, energy, in some cases ingredients or tools, there is also a difference in how we go about it. And what really interested me in this topic was the fact that a lot of witches tend to have these courses where they teach witchcraft, and some of their courses tend to teach, or they tend to preach, I should say, that this is the right way to do witchcraft. I don't think that there is a right or a wrong way, as I have mentioned in the past, to do witchcraft. I think it's completely subjective based off of what ingredients and tools that you have. I think it's also subjective based off of your own belief system and the entities that you work with. I also think it's subjective based off of what it is that you want to accomplish with your spellcraft. Some people might say that there is only one way to do a money spell involving green candles, specific herbs, specific oils, and specific intentions. But another witch might say that there's a different way to do it. I'm not going to get into the conversation of who's right and who's wrong and who's fake and who's not and who's this and who's that, because that conversation is currently, at the time of this recording, happening on TikTok. And if you're unfamiliar with the dark side of TikTok, you can check out my video literally titled The Dark Side of TikTok. One of the issues that I see with teaching witchcraft is not that you can't teach witchcraft, because as I've already stated in this video, you can definitely teach a lot of the basics of witchcraft, and you can give opinions and ideas and suggestions and inspiration on how witches who are attempting to learn from your course how to do certain things like rituals or casting a circle or spells or so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, I think when we teach witchcraft, a lot of us who consider ourselves to be teachers, myself excluded, because I don't really teach you anything, I just show and talk about what I'm doing, as we've seen in numerous of my past videos. If you learn something from my videos, or you're inspired by my videos, or you're sitting there laughing and eating popcorn and thinking that I'm the biggest joke in the world, then I guess you're getting some form of entertainment out of it, because I'm a very entertaining person, I think. When we teach witchcraft, we're really teaching our witchcraft. We're giving our opinions and our thoughts on what witchcraft is to us and how we practice it. Because as I've stated earlier in this video, witchcraft is a very deeply personal path that we go down. It's a spiritual path that we go down. And one of the interesting things is that we all do it differently. Even Wiccans who practice Wicca do it differently than other Wiccans who practice Wicca. Unless you're in a coven, where your coven has very specific ways of doing rituals and casting circles and casting spells and when you can and when you can't, then I can't really see how one, aside from the basics, could teach witchcraft in any meaningful way. Because aside from the 10 signs you're a witch video and the 10 herbs that you should be using in your witchcraft and the 5 different ways to use a candle and the 300 different ways to make an oil and 50,000 different ways to read a candle, it's all subjective. It's all our own personal experience based off of what we're doing. Again, that doesn't count for people who are in strictly regimented covens that say you must do this. There are some courses out there that I have found where they tend to teach a very dogmatic practice of witchcraft, meaning you can only do spells on certain moon phases, that you can only use certain candles for certain spells, that you can only do certain spells at certain times of day, week, month, year, planetary alignments, so on and so forth. And I guess if you're the type of person who wants to follow that very dogmatic practice, there's nothing wrong with it, but it bleeds away the individuality that we bring to witchcraft. A prime example is that the way that I do my craft is vastly different than the way Ember Honeyraven might do her craft. We don't follow the same spiritual practices or the same spiritual path. We may not work with the same god or goddess. We may not work with the same entities or spirits at all. In fact, I don't think there's another witch on YouTube that works with and talks about demons as much as I do, in such a casual way where it doesn't feel like they're trying to sell you something. There is this notion of constantly trying to sell people things, but I'll get into that in a different video. I guess if you're somebody who currently has a course on teaching witchcraft, I mean, that's your own business. That's what you do is what you do. But I have to ask the question, aside from the basics, which every book out there has, and aside from some demonstrations of how you might do things, what can you really teach when it comes to witchcraft? If you Google anything about witchcraft or YouTube anything about witchcraft, you're going to get demonstrations of every kind of spell you can find. Some might be harder to find because they're less popular, and others might be more easier to find because they're way more popular. A prime example is money spells. Money spells are the easiest spell to do, and they are plentiful on YouTube, including my own channel, because I am a money witch. I'm constantly needing money all the time, every day, every day. So I just wanted to leave that kind of question out there for you guys to respond down in the comments with your own thoughts and opinions. What can you really teach when you start a course to teach witchcraft, when everything that's ever been talked about witchcraft is easier to find and it may be all over the place, but it's easy to find from books, blogs, YouTube videos. I guess the real question is what are people paying for when they pay somebody to teach them witchcraft? I'm curious.